I'm one of the attorneys at Peterson, Berk specializing in plaintiff's personal injury law. We've been doing this monthly group, just talking about some different aspects of personal injury law to give you some more information. Today, April 21, there's a couple things I want to mention before we start our main topic, which is about umbrella insurance policies. The first thing is I woke up this morning, unfortunately, to see snow on the ground. And then there were a number of tweets and articles from the news um, informing of roads that were closed because of crashes. So first thing, I hope everybody was able to be safe this morning and slow down. We just don't know when the weather gets like this. I know it's April. I know I want to be done with the snow too. I want to be done with winter clothes, but it's just not safe. So I hope everybody was able to get on their way safely this morning. If anyone did have the unfortunate circumstance to be involved in a crash, please don't hesitate to reach out and just make sure you understand your legal rights. Our number is area code 920-831-0300, and you can always find more information on our website, of course, www.foxriverlawyers.com, and just by listening to me. The other thing I wanted to mention today before we got started is that today is a national holiday. It is Administrative Professionals Day. I just want to take a moment to thank all the secretaries, paralegals, legal assistants, receptionists, all the support staff that really make the legal field function. I know my staff knows that we really are a vital team. So thank you to all the administrative professionals out there. We appreciate you. We know what a huge role you play in making all of our offices function. Well, now let's shift to the topic we're here to talk about today, which is what is an umbrella insurance policy and how do I know if I need one? As we've talked about on all our videos, our conversation today does not create a legal contract, or this is not truly legal advice. This is general information for educational purposes. Please, I encourage you, call me. If you have specific questions, the part that makes my life and my job very interesting is there's so many different facts that come into play in every legal analysis that I never get bored. But it means it's very hard to give across the board advice to anyone. So please, if you have specific questions, reach out and call me. We have free consultations. I'm always happy to talk to people and make sure their questions are being answered correctly. So talking about umbrella insurance, before we get to what is an umbrella policy, I think it's good to understand what types of insurance are typically discussed when we talk about automobile insurance coverage. I have heard more times than I could ever even begin to count. Someone comes in and tells me they have full coverage. There's no legal definition for full coverage. Perhaps those in the insurance industry have ideas of what full coverage means, but it means nothing. Someone telling me you have full coverage tells me nothing about the types of insurance that are out there. When a person purchases automobile insurance, there's various different categories of insurance that are purchased. The first is liability insurance, sometimes it's called bodily injury insurance. This is insurance that protects your assets, your personal worth, your personal items, if you as the driver cause harm to someone else. That's liability insurance. That's when your insurance comes in, defends you and protects you to make sure if you caused harm to someone else, this morning, if you were driving and you didn't realize how slick it was when you got on the overpass and you slid and ran into another vehicle, your auto insurance company should be informed of that, and your liability coverage will protect you. A second type of insurance coverage that's often purchased is collision coverage. Collision coverage pays for the vehicle. Some people say that, well, my vehicle's not worth that much, I'm not going to carry collision on it. There's nothing wrong with making that decision. Now, of course, I've often heard from people that have made that determination that, well, I think my car is only worth $1,500. I'm not going to pay for collision coverage on it. Then that person gets hit by a driver who has no insurance. And now my client's suddenly upset of, well, why can't I get my $1,500 back for my vehicle? I need that. Those are things that we need to make sure that everybody's purchasing what they want to have. Another area of insurance coverage that's often purchased is medical payments coverage. Medical payments coverage is a backup health plan. That backup health plan covers medical bills for injuries that are received in an accident. There's some complex laws about whether a health insurance company has to pay bills first or whether a health plan, rather than the medical payments coverage, but that's something I can help people out with too. This is usually a pretty inexpensive way to provide some extra health insurance backup, especially for young people who may not be as concerned about carrying health insurance. These are usually modest policies, somewhere in the range of 1,000 to 10,000 in medical payments coverage, but it typically, by bumping it up to something a little higher, can really help it for those times where there may be a lapse in health insurance and unfortunately something dramatic like a car crash happens. The fourth kind of insurance coverage that people typically purchase is uninsured motorist coverage. When you purchase an automobile insurance policy in the state of Wisconsin, you're required to purchase an uninsured motorist policy as well. That policy must be at least 25,000. But this is where we really start to think about, how can I protect myself from other people? When you look at a liability policy, that's important because we want to make sure that your assets are safe in case you do make a mistake. But you can control whether you are a safe driver. You can control whether you decide to have some drinks and get behind the wheel. You can control whether you're going to text and drive. You can't control what the other people in the world are doing. As such, that's why it's really important to think about things like uninsured motorist coverage. The uninsured motorist coverage protects you in case that driver that hits you does not have insurance. There's a second type of insurance that has similar protection called underinsured motorist coverage. This protects you if the other driver that hits you doesn't have enough insurance coverage. Those are very important pieces to look at. Now, you're probably asking, why are we 10 minutes into this and we haven't even talked about umbrella coverage yet? And I think it's really important to understand the types of insurance before understanding what umbrella coverage can do for you. An umbrella is typically an excess policy. So policies are purchased in limits amounts. So for example, if your liability coverage is a 100-300 policy, that means you've purchased $100,000 of liability protection if you cause harm to someone else per person, and up to 300 per accident. So if there's two people that are hurt because you made a mistake driving, then each of those individuals could collect up to 100,000. If there'd be four people injured because you made a mistake while driving, those four people would have to split up to 300,000, with no one person getting more than 100. There's a lot of split policies. Some policies are a single limit where it's just one lump sum, such as 300. Umbrellas are typically $1 million or $2 million. And the first thing that every umbrella I've ever seen, what they do is they provide backup liability coverage. When you're looking at that for, is this something I need? This may be more the purview of an insurance agent, but I'd like to give you my take on it, just having seen these things. When I first purchased automobile insurance coverage, I'd like to say 10, 15 years ago, let's get real, 25, 30 years ago, I talked to my dad about what do I think, what do I need? How do I know what insurance I need to purchase? And he said, well, you really don't have much. You know, I was young in college, said you just need to protect your assets. So you should buy this amount. That's one way to look at it. If you cause harm to someone else and you don't have enough insurance coverage, the person who's hurt can try to go after your personal assets. It's a very difficult thing to do. As long as someone is not acting in a way that involves drunk driving or other malicious acts, the person who caused the accident, if there was large amounts, could file for bankruptcy. Not always a pleasant thing, of course, but it's an option. As I've told many clients, when faced with policy limits that aren't enough to cover their injuries, you can't get blood from a turnip. There's no way to force someone to pay for all of your injuries. If there's just not enough insurance coverage there, there's ways they can legally get out of it. And that's true if you were the one who accidentally made a mistake and hurt someone else in driving. So one thing you could look at is, what are my assets I need to protect? And I want to make sure I have enough insurance coverage for that. Well, that made sense perhaps when I was 22. I think it's something that people need to have some more thoughts on, especially as they age, about your moral obligations. If I made a mistake driving and someone else was severely hurt and it was another mom who couldn't provide for her family and I didn't have enough coverage to take care of that person, that would make me feel very bad. I have been in cases in which the defendant driver made a mistake, caused serious harm, and is just devastated and broken up by it. A lot of purchasing insurance is purchasing peace of mind. So that's something to think about too, is having an umbrella a way that you could protect the other drivers out there just in case, and if you're in a position to be able to afford that coverage, that may be something you can do just to make sure that you're not going to have that worry or that guilt. There are many times, well, more than I'd like to think about, where I've been involved in situations that no one is acting in an egregious or terrible manner. I can recall one case in which a gentleman was getting something out of a trunk of a parked vehicle. He was standing between two vehicles, and a family was driving down the road, and the driver had his attention distracted. I'm not even really sure why. Perhaps he was reaching down for something. And he ran into one of those parked vehicles, which then pinched the gentleman who was between those two vehicles at his trunk, and he lost part of his leg. Thankfully, that family had an umbrella policy on their vehicle. But again, when we look at that moral peace of mind sort of aspect of it, how would you feel if you made a pretty minor mistake and someone ended up having life-altering consequences? And that's what I think people should look at when they're looking at purchasing insurance. Now, really the most important takeaway I want to talk about from umbrella insurance, the standard umbrella insurance is going to be a liability policy. It's going to cover your negligence if you make a mistake. It's going to take care of the other people that get hurt. It is not automatic that an umbrella policy covers or takes care of you in an uninsured or underinsured motorist context. If anyone is purchasing an umbrella, it's not enough to say, well, I have 250,000 on my car and then I have $1 million umbrella, therefore if I get hurt, I'm taken care of. That's not necessarily accurate. It is vital. It is absolutely key. If someone is interested in purchasing an umbrella policy to protect themselves, and frankly, why wouldn't you? If you're going to pay for this extra coverage, why wouldn't you want to make sure your family and your needs are taken care of first? It's vital that you speak to your insurance agent and make sure that that policy provides uninsured and underinsured motorist benefits. And sometimes the policies aren't written that way. I'd say probably in the last 10 to 12 years, there was a shift in the law where at one point, insurance companies had to mail a letter to people to say, we want to make sure you understand that your umbrella policy doesn't cover uninsured and underinsured motorists, and you had to agree to that. That requirement's been taken away. So I hear from more people than I'd like to remember who tell me, well, don't worry, I have $1 million umbrella, I'm protected. And they're not protected for themselves. They're only protected if that person causes injury to another. So it's really key that when looking at an umbrella policy, I do my very best to get in writing from my insurance agent that says the umbrella covers uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Or I know in times when I've purchased a policy, my agent said it was actually a better deal for me to put a higher limit in my uninsured or underinsured policy itself and have the umbrella just carry the negligence portion. Turns out to be the same thing, but it's really key to look at that. So I would love a world in which everybody had an umbrella policy. I wish that most people would carry it, and that simply is not the way it goes. There are way too many times that I am working with people who are hurt. They're hurt badly. I don't think the general public understands how quickly medical bills can rack up. If a client is in the hospital for a week, those bills are probably going to be $100,000. And when it may sound right now, well, I have a $100,000 liability policy, that's plenty of money. That should protect me. And it simply is not. There's too many times that I've had to work with people who just do not have adequate insurance coverage. And they're left trying to pick up the pieces of their life without this extra benefit to help them get back on their feet. I wish more people had umbrellas. They don't. But that's another reason why it's so important. I definitely think from what I see, and I don't know the nationwide or statewide statistics, but from the people who contact me, I work way more often with uninsured motorist cases than I work with cases in which there's an umbrella involved. There's much more happenstance of individuals who just don't have any insurance coverage than there is individuals who have excess insurance coverage. So it's an important thing to think about for protecting you and your family. And that protection goes both ways. Like I said, it both would protect any personal assets if you made a mistake and harmed someone else, which doesn't necessarily mean it was a reckless thing. Accidents happen, mistakes happen. That's why this is civil. This is negligence. It isn't necessarily where someone is saying that a driver is a bad person. We make mistakes. Cars are very dangerous instrumentalities, and we've adapted to it. I often say we learn to drive when we're 16 because if we did it at age 30 and understand the risks, we wouldn't do it. It's too dangerous. When looking at an umbrella, think about how you want to protect your family. Make sure you're protecting both your assets and your lives and your well-being. Make sure that if you purchase an umbrella, that there's coverage for uninsured and underinsured motorists. As always, and as we started with, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. We're always happy to talk to people. I really want to make sure that you get the right legal advice, that you understand and you know your rights if anything's gone wrong, and that we get you sorted in the right direction for that if it's not something that we can handle. As we discussed, our number here is area code 920-831-0300. And our website is foxriverlawyers.com. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to hear from you. Thank you and have a good day.